This is the Vanguard podcast. I'm Gavin.
And I'm Zac.
And we've just been joined by Madelyn Hoffman, activist and Green candidate for the United States Senate, running to represent the state of New Jersey. Welcome to the podcast, Madelyn. How's it going this morning?
Well, I'm awake now, and I'm here, and I'm happy to be here with the two of you. And yeah, where the campaign is, we're working hard. We're working hard to for every vote, and we're working hard less for votes and more for, well, not less for votes, but as much just to get the word out about who the Greens are and and what the Greens stand for. So we've got several events a day, seems like, from now until election day. So
gotcha.
Going okay.
Yeah, well, you've been involved with the Green Party and with activism for a little bit. Would you want to just introduce yourself a little bit and maybe explain to our viewers and listeners what you're about, what your campaign stands for, and why you're running in this race against the Democratic incumbent Cory Booker in New Jersey?
Sure. Well, to give you a little bit of my history, I first ran for public office in 1996. So we're talking almost 25 years ago now. I guess that dates me a little bit. But I had been working as a activist on environmental issues, toxic chemical issues, for almost 20 years by that point. And I was drafted by the Green Party of New Jersey initially to run for US president that year, because that was the first year that Nader ran for office. And people weren't sure what states he would run in. And a lot of people don't realize that the presidential race is a series of state races. So every state has to petition to get a candidate on the ballot. So the Green Party of New Jersey had asked me to stand in and be the presidential candidate in New Jersey, which was an overwhelming request. I was like, me run for president? What is this? And then as I was trying to decide whether to do it or not, about 10 days later, another letter came through which asked me to run for vice president because Ralph Nader had said, yes, he would run in New Jersey. So that was a lot easier for me to handle. I thought, oh, okay, I can run for vice president. And then I was his running mate for New Jersey. That was a very unusual year for presidential politics. After I ran with Nader as his vice presidential running mate for New Jersey, the next year I ran for governor, 1997. I ran for governor of the state of New Jersey. And then I ran for US Congress in 1998. And then I dropped off the political scene entirely. Because I got a job as a director of a nonprofit peace organization, and it was a obviously nonpartisan organization. So from 2000 to 2018, I was the director of that peace organization, and then decided to retire from that job, and found out that the Greens in New Jersey were looking for somebody to run for US Senate. That was Senator Menendez that year. And was sitting around the table with a group of Greens, and somebody said, now we need somebody to run for you. All we need is somebody to run for US Senate. And I heard a voice as if coming from nowhere saying, I'll do it. What? Wait a minute. What did I say? Did I say that? Did I say that? Of course I did. And I did give it some thought after that. And I ran for US Senate in 2018 against Senator Menendez and got the most votes of any of the third parties running that year. So technically I came in third, though a distant third, because the Menendez and Hugan each got well over 1 million votes. And so with my 25,150, that was the most of any other third parties, but it's a distant third, but a very proud achievement. We got more votes that year than the Libertarian Party did. And that was something we had never done on a statewide level as a Green Party. So
Madeline, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned it seems you've spent a lot of time, at least in the state of New Jersey. Is that where you've spent most of your life?
Yes, that's where I was born and raised, and I lived in the Midwest for 6 months right out of college. I also went to college in Middletown, Connecticut, Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. And then I've also traveled a great deal.
I wanted to ask you about the COVID-19 impact in your state. New Jersey was a state that was hit uniquely hard, obviously due to its close proximity to, what was essentially one of the global epicenters of the viral spread in New York City, certainly the national epicenter. I just wondered if you could talk about the lasting impact that this has had on your communities, economic, physical, and emotional well-being, the toll of this economic instability while trying to mourn the loss of loved ones. And what people are looking to see from the government that they're not getting.
Well, that's quite a question. It is probably the question to ask of people in New Jersey, New York, and anywhere else in the country, but primarily here in New Jersey. One of the things that was made apparent from the beginning is that a lot of the problems that emerged once COVID hit and the state went on lockdown, which was somewhere in the beginning of March, and we're still on a modified lockdown. Not all of the restrictions have been lifted. But one of the things that was evident from there and leading up to it is that the fissures and the problems that have existed in this country for years, under capitalism particularly, those fissures were always there. But COVID and COVID-19 and the lockdown certainly highlighted them. In other words, healthcare, problems with people obtaining healthcare, and problems with communities of color being hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Communities of color are hit hardest by virtually every ill the society has because of the deep segregation, financial lending practices. You want to go all the way back, and discrimination in employment and all kinds of things along those lines. And then healthcare. Healthcare in this country, as you know, health insurance costs a pretty penny, unless you're very poor, or even the Affordable Care Act. I benefited from the Affordable Care Act since it started in 2000 or thereabouts. No, it wasn't 2000, 2010, and it doesn't do enough. It's very expensive. It requires it sets a pretty high max deductible and out-of-pocket expenses on top of that, and so those
it's essentially a mass handout to the health insurance industry.
Yes.
So they had to keep
Yes.
the profit motive in there.
Yes, and even still the private health insurance industry. Thank you. Just like, even so, the private health insurance industry balked at it and made it sound like they were opposed to it, and created all kinds of political problems. And so I believe in single payer universal health care, as you can see there on the screen. And the Affordable Care Act isn't going to cut it. I don't care how you tweak it. It's not going to work. So what we need is the single payer, improved and expanded Medicare for all. And I still can't believe that I heard Joe Biden during the debates say, and then afterwards, but particularly during the debates, say over and over again, when Bernie Sanders confronted him on this, oh no, all we need to do is tweak the Affordable Care Act. That's all we need to do is reform the Affordable Care Act. It would seem to me that anybody whose eyes were open and anybody who was looking at what was going on in this country, or in New Jersey specifically, as your question mentioned, would have had to say, we need universal health care so that people don't have to worry about whether to get the test, where to get the test, how to get a test. Are they gonna stand in line or stay in their car in line for hours to get tested? That was one side of it. The other side of it is that when people lost their jobs, millions of people who lost their jobs also lost their health
30
insurance.
million people, yeah.
Yeah, so because health insurance and work were tied together. So
While we
and
are
then
on the topic of work, just to
yes,
kind of turn a little bit of a corner here, I wanted to ask about the economic impact that this has also had in the community on top of the health impact. We've seen the president go back and forth teasing the stimulus check that people desperately need, but there doesn't seem to be any political will from either Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to get something like this accomplished and passed through. I'm just wondering what your reaction to that is, and if you were in the Senate, what you would be pushing for as a stimulus.
well, that's another good question. Remember the day that Senator Booker, my opponent, announced at a press conference that was held by Governor Murphy that he was urging the passage of the CARES Act, I believe it was called.
Yeah, the CARES Act.
Yeah, and how he was so excited that it was coming through, but that large categories of people were left out, he said. He said the homeless are left out. He said students are left out. He said immigrants are left out. And then he just waltzed right on to talk about who was included.
Voted for it.
Yeah, and it's mine, and I co-sponsored, and I'm so happy. And this is not acceptable because you're just writing off a whole chunk of the segment of the population, and at the same time, I think he said, and those are prophetic words now, I guess, he said, and we'll get to it the next time around. We'll correct those mistakes with the next stimulus package. P.S. That was March, and this is October, and there is no next stimulus package. And I made a fuss about it, and I guess as a Green, I got some flack from people when Nancy Pelosi wanted to call a special meeting to deal with the issues of the post office, but was only too willing to walk away from the negotiations around the stimulus package. Everyone said to me, "Oh, well, the House has passed its version. It's sitting there, the stimulus package. It's McConnell who's blocking it." And I'd say, well, but the Democrats have a role to play in that too. Is it okay that they just walked away? And now, after they walked away, we're still looking for a stimulus package. Now, I think, and I was an advocate for universal basic income, that instead of arguing one stimulus check at a time, that every month people should get $2,000 as part of the stimulus. Now, that wouldn't last forever necessarily, and it doesn't take the place of a real job, because jobs creation is what we needed as well. But universal basic income, some countries have it, some places have it.
Yeah, Gavin and I have talked about Spain's instituted it quite effectively.
Yeah, so that would have avoided all this political wrangling however often they decide they want to bring it up as an issue in Congress. Obviously, because the members of Congress and the House and the Senate just don't really hear what the people want or know what the people need. They're not close enough to, they're not paying enough attention, let's put it that way, because even the unemployment benefits that were the extra, the subsidy, the $600, when that ran out at the end of July, where was the clamoring to extend it?
Do you think that that's part of Nancy Pelosi's political calculus, to just kind of watch the world burn until the election?
Maybe it's the political calculus of the Democratic Party. in the sense that the only thing that they're running on at this point, it seems to me, is we got to get Trump out of there. We got to get Trump out. Trump's the problem. Let's get rid of Trump. And I have people, and I know people who very solid activists, very committed activists who are going to vote for Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden is a warmonger, even though Joe Biden has said repeatedly, as did his VP the other night, we're not going to ban fracking. We're not going to get.
I wanted to ask you about that as well.
We're not going to get the nation off fossil fuels. We don't believe in a Green New Deal. So we somehow, our politics have descended into a place where people can rationalize voting for Joe Biden, a very, very weak, middle of the road, if that, candidate, because the equation or the political calculus, as you said, is all about the most important thing we have to do is get rid of Trump. And they could have put up, I don't want to use the analogy that someone I know uses, but they could have put up, but I will. They could have put off Adolf Hitler and Mother Teresa, and if Adolf Hitler had a D in front of his name, he'd get elected. I mean, that's carrying it out to the logical extreme, if you know what I mean.
Well, I wanted to. I also wanted to ask about, speaking of pretty centrist and mediocre Democratic characters, I wanted to hear a little bit about, your own Democratic opponent in Cory Booker, who, of course, ran for the Democratic nomination himself. And had he had his way, he would be at the front of the ticket himself. Obviously, that didn't happen. But, Cory likes to paint himself as a real, working kind of guy. He claimed in the campaign that he lives in Newark right alongside the working people of New Jersey, understands the struggles of inner city life. And I mean, he's obviously your senator, so I don't know as much about him. I just wanted to hear your opinion, your review on his representation. Do you think he's a good senator? I mean, obviously you're running against him, so you think he needs to be replaced, but I just wanted to hear your opinion.
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to make clear that I do not compare Joe Biden to Adolf Hitler. I just want you to be sure.
That's fair.
Okay, because that analogy could be twisted a little bit.
Yeah.
No, we got that joke.
Okay. All right. So then to your question, Cory Booker is a neoliberal candidate for U.S. Senate, and Cory Booker, I was just talking to someone the other day whom I had never met before, or a journalist who said that anybody he's ever spoken to from Newark doesn't like Senator Booker. So in other words, Senator Booker has a national reputation that's different from the reputation he has here at home with the people that he served as mayor for 2 terms. And I've issued some press releases on that myself, together with people who live in Newark. So Senator Booker doesn't support single payer healthcare. Senator Booker, he supported, well, as you know, I'm an anti-war activist and have been for a long time. And when I was the director of the peace organization, we would lobby Senator Cory Booker, and we had to lobby him extremely hard to agree to the Iran deal, the Iran nuclear deal that was finally, after 5 years or so, developed amongst 9 nations in Iran. And he only agreed to vote for it after there were enough senators to make it happen. But since that day, since Donald Trump took the deal and shredded it, Senator Booker has said that he doesn't think he would sign another one. And that goes to a deeper underlying issue that was one of the things I've focused on a lot at the beginning of the campaign, and that is his position on Israel-Palestine. When he was running for president, he was cornered, I guess, or approached by an activist for Palestinian rights and human rights. And she was starting to ask him about his position on the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And his response was, if the Israeli occupation of Palestine is your issue, go find yourself another candidate. So
sounds familiar.
Yes, yes. So on that issue, then I'm clearly different than he is. In fact, the day that he announced he was running for president not here in Newark, but here in New Jersey, in Newark, there was a demonstration held out in front of that, saying, how can you say you're for equality and justice for all when you have this position towards the Palestinians under Israeli occupation? So Iran, Israel, and Palestine, single payer. Education. On education, Senator Booker moved Newark from being focused primarily on public education to a system of charter schools. He's started to convert or transform Newark to a charter school, private school-based situation. And that's, I don't believe in that. I think public schools are, what holds up this country, and public schools need to be funded differently, but needed to be funded fully and be available for everyone. And then this whole issue of lead contamination in the water. Now, it didn't start under Senator Cory Booker, but it didn't end under him either. And the people who live in Newark were not pleased with the way Booker handled water issues in general, going from a public watershed to potentially selling it to a private water supply. So there are a lot of ways in which I differ from Senator Booker. He's either abstained or voted to increase the military budget every single time.
Madelyn, while we're on the topic of the military, I did have one question specifically to ask you about that. You've mentioned your longtime activism as an anti-war activist. And, just a couple of days ago on October 7th, we passed the 19-year anniversary of the invasion of Afghanistan with Operation Enduring Freedom. I wanted to speak to you a little bit about that. And the invasion of Afghanistan happened when Gavin and myself were 3 years old, and almost 20 years later, we still have 10,000 troops on the ground in Afghanistan. The Afghanistan papers that were released earlier in the year revealed the complete aimlessness and directionlessness of our ambitions, yet we still, occupy this territory, causing havoc and destruction and terror for the people that live there, and also putting American troops in harm's way needlessly. Occasionally there are headlines when Donald Trump or even Obama would reduce the troop count down to, something like 7,000 or 8,000 troops, but then they always back up again. I guess my question is, what's your plan for standing up to the military-industrial complex in the Senate, which demands this perpetual state of conflict to keep enriching itself with a complete disregard for, human life?
Yeah, my plan would be to advocate for what I've advocated for a long time, and also would be to replace Democrats with Greens, because the only anti-war party out here is the Green Party. The Democrats and Republicans both are like this with the military-industrial complex, something that he was no anti-war champion. That was Dwight D. Eisenhower. He warned everyone about the military-industrial complex going back to the late 50s, early 60s. So this is not something that was unexpected. It's gotten worse and worse. And I would just have to, I would make the argument, and I would try to get other senators to join with me, but I would hold fast to mine. And that is the wars that we've been involved with since 2001 after 9/11. They've been illegal wars. They've been costly wars. They have displaced millions of people. They've destroyed millions of people's lives. And they are for the benefit solely of the military contractors and the elites in this country. They are not to benefit the people of the United States. They are not to benefit the people of other countries. I mean, our war in Afghanistan, as you mentioned, Zach, it's the longest war in US history. And I was just writing about it the other day. There was virtually nothing in the media anywhere about the fact that we're 19 years in and we're still in Afghanistan. I traveled to Afghanistan in 2005. I met people, I met women who are trying to, who are stronger than anyone in the media here portrays. You know, Afghan women who were judges and lawyers and journalists and people who were just looking to have a normal life where, you know, their kids were getting educated, they had food on the table, water was clean, there weren't, you know, outbreaks of cholera going on. That's all people in Afghanistan wanted. And they've had now, since 1979, decades of war. Either the United States going in, trying to lure Russia in the 70s, you know, so that Russia could have its Vietnam and Afghanistan, civil war that the United States was on one side and then the other. This way of addressing disagreements with countries around the world is not working, does not work. The economic, they're called sanctions by US media, but they truly, a better term for them are unilateral economic coercive measures. In other words, the United States saying to Venezuela, for example, we're just going to prevent you. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and Pompeo and Trump just recently used the vast power of the United States to force the UN to reduce its aid to Yemen to a crippling 25 cents per person per day, essentially starving out the entire country. So it's not just that the United States has the capacity to cut its own aid, it's that will force the entire world to not do any trading with you, keep your medication away, keep the cost of food skyrocketing, essentially for breaking the will of the people into demanding that they do whatever the United States wishes.
The military budget consumes $740 billion of the U.S. Treasury at a minimum. That's what it's voted on by the Congress, but there are other hidden costs and costs that like nuclear weapons development, trillions set aside for nuclear weapons development over the next 10 years. And there are other places where we could find expenditures that are connected to the military. But if you just take the 740 billion right now, about 57 cents of every dollar in our taxes goes to the military. And as we were talking at the very beginning of the program, we were talking about healthcare, we were talking about education, we were talking about we didn't say, but their student loans, outstanding student debt. We were talking about the need for, when talking about COVID and the shortage of PPE, all of the things that we need as a country to address our social community problems. We could do that and then some if we took what my campaign is calling for is 50% reduction in the military budget. Yeah. Did I just lose you?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Okay, there we are. So if we took $370 billion out of the military budget, there's so much that we could do. But then we would also need to change our approach to the rest of the world. We would have to be a country that cared to negotiate, to use diplomacy, to live in a world of nations together, not as the dominant nation that's trying to assert that the way we do things is the best way. Because clearly, if you look at what's going on in this country right now, what we do, how we do it, is not the best way, not for just about anything at this point. And I think the rest of the world knows that and understands that. And the rest of the world is tired of the United States threatening war, waging war.
I think that's very fair. And
Economic sanctions and the like. So I would think we need to change that whole mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that I'm also an advocate for defunding the military and reallocating those resources into, our own communities here in America and, ending our foreign intervention abroad. I think it's one of the most obvious solutions. And I also think that it's one of the better ways to pay for programs like Medicare for all, and you're not threatening raising anyone's taxes as much or, freaking anyone out, giving the Democrats another talking point to use against the left, essentially. Instead, it basically just comes for the military budget, which most reasonable people agree is bloated and, the result of corruption and all of that stuff. So yeah, thanks for speaking to those issues. Like I said, I really agree with you. Another issue that I wanted to broach with you quickly is, the difference you have with the Democratic Party or the Green Party difference with the Democratic Party when it comes to the Green New Deal. Zach and I on this podcast, we've talked to, Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker, from the Green Party. We've also talked to quite a few progressive Democrats that rep the Democratic Party version of the Green New Deal. And on your website, you're calling for a real Green New Deal. And I just wanted to, hear in your words what the distinction is, between the Green New Deal of the Green Party and the one that's kind of been watered down by the Democrats.
And even the watered down version is in passing. A real Green New Deal, is one that am I still on with you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, something funny is happening with my screen. So I guess when you screen share, I get bummed. I don't see myself on the screen.
Oh, weird. Okay, well, I just pulled up your campaign page with your climate policy. So yeah, we're still on.
I see it. Yeah. No, I see it, and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Apologize for that.
No problem.
So yeah, the real Green New Deal goes back to the one that Howie Hawkins introduced in 2010. And it has two parts to it that the Green New Deal, the watered down version, is not addressing. One is going back to the military industrial complex. It recognizes that unless there are deep cuts to the military budget and a huge rollback in what the United States is doing overseas, because the military is a huge consumer of fossil fuels, there won't be a Green New Deal. So first you have to look to make sure in whatever Green New Deal is proposed that it's clearly mentioned that the military is a part of the problem, and that unless we confront what the military is doing, we're not going to address climate change. Mm-hmm. And the second part of it is that we have to address the Bill of Rights, an economic Bill of Rights for the workers of this country, and for the most of the people in this country who are not profiting from the military or COVID response. There were workers during the height of this pandemic who had to make a choice between staying home and staying safe, but losing a paycheck and going to work and putting themselves in a very dangerous situation. These are the people who work in the meat packing plants in the Midwest. The only way we've got, the way we're calling for workers' rights is through an eco-socialist Green New Deal. So we're talking both about confronting the military and about moving from capitalism to socialism, eco-socialism, where we are protecting both the environment and the workers at the same time. And we need full employment program for workers. And it's when I was working to fight against toxic chemical pollution in the 80s and 90s. We would say over and over again, don't build a garbage incinerator because you're wasting resources. And if we did a full-scale waste reduction, composting, recycling program, we would create many more jobs. Same thing applies here. If we went from a military-based economy to an economy that was an eco-socialist one, we would address issues of we would create more jobs. We used to have a chart in some of the fact sheets we prepared when I was working for the peace organization, and the charts would show that for every dollar spent on the military, you'd get that many jobs. I won't put a number on it because I don't remember, but for money for dollars spent on education and sustainable economy and so on, we go higher and higher and higher and higher. So the facts are there, the information is there, but the will is not. And so the Green New Deal that we support as Greens is an eco-socialist, real Green New Deal. And it takes care of living wages for people, a tuition-free college, student debt, forfeiting student debt, eliminating student debt, and it's provide single payer healthcare, Medicare for all, improved and expanded Medicare for all. It includes all these programs that would give us a better quality of life. And by us, I mean the majority of us, not just a few people who can, who have several yachts or whatever it is. They say, I'm living the life of my dreams. Well, they may be living the life of their dreams, but millions of people are not.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Madelyn. We've had a great conversation hearing about your platform. And to anyone that's listening to this conversation, where can they go to support your amazing campaign for the U.S. Senate to replace Cory Booker and, get some Green Party presence in our legislative bodies in Washington, D.C.?
Okay, well, you can go to my website, which is hoffmanforsenate.com. If you, there you go, at hoffmanforsenate.com. If you want to volunteer for the campaign, it's hoffmanforsenate.com/volunteer, or Hoffman for Senate. If you want to donate to the campaign, hoffmanforsenate.com/donate. And we're coming down the home stretch. Yeah, we have lawn signs we can share with you for free or a minimum donation. You'd also go to my website to ask for a sign. We have literature we're going to start. We're distributing, even though it's COVID times. We're socially distancing. We wear face masks when we're out. We don't do anything that's not safe. So you can find me on Facebook also at Hoffman for Senate 2020, and join the conversation. Tell me what you want to see our campaign do. Tell me where you want me to come, where in your community you want me to come and address issues. My campaign is, I'll just end with this, it's not about me personally, as you can tell from the work that I've done over the years. It's about building a social movement to take on the forces that are holding us back. And so if I'm going to be speaking at a rally on the homeless problem, or the problem of housing and affordable housing in general. I'll be speaking there. I've spoken at, climate justice events. So this is about amplifying the work that's already being done to address climate change, be anti-war, to resolve issues of affordable housing, overdevelopment at places like Liberty State Park in New Jersey, The list goes on. So I appreciate your support in any way possible.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing in New Jersey, Madeline, and huge fans of the Green Party here at the Vanguard, as well as pretty much all leftist third-party opposition to the duopoly. So thank you for what you're doing. Like I said, if you're watching this video, make sure to head over to Madelyn Hoffman's website to check out her platform to see more about what she stands for and to donate. Like I said, these kind of campaigns really need your guys' help. So please check that out. And if you're watching this video, make sure to subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends and family, give it a comment, whatever you feel the need to do. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Madeline. And look forward to having you back on soon.
I will do it gladly. I need to address two other issues. I've been seeing the Black Lives Matter signs, posters on both your background and Zach's.
Yeah,
So I need to talk about that issue, and also immigrants.
absolutely.
Right? Those are two things we unfortunately didn't have time to get to today, but they're part of my platform.
Yeah, let's definitely keep talking about that on our next podcast where we invite you on. Like I said, really enjoyed this conversation and would love to continue talking. And actually, Zach and I are tonight going downtown to Kansas City to the police headquarters where there's currently a kind of a group of people in tents that are occupying out front of the police headquarters, demanding the resignation of the police chief because of a video that's gone around of the Kansas City Police Department kneeling on the back of a pregnant woman, 25-year-old pregnant woman who was, not by any evidence doing anything wrong. They claim that there was a fight going on, but there's seemingly no justification for this brutal behavior. So Zach and I are going down there tonight to join in the protest to document the, gathering and see what's going on, try to talk to some protesters and see what their perspective is. So yeah, I'd love to have that conversation with you as well and hear, your platform on the issues.
All right. Well, thank you for doing that too today, and amplifying that issue and bringing that out. It's something that as a country, we've not really dealt with adequately since 1776. So, but
Agreed.
it's really come to the forefront yet again.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you're going to be doing that. I
Absolutely.
look forward to being back on the show to talk to you.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. We'll be having Madelyn Hoffman back on the show soon. And like I mentioned, that footage from those protests, we'll probably be putting up a little piece on that as well. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay safe. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you, Madelyn.
Thank you, Gavin.